Hello and welcome back to the Chargers Check-In. My name is Cecilia, and we have a lot of exciting stuff to get to today because the Chargers are playing the Commanders at SoFi, and I think this is a really high-stakes game for both teams. On the Commanders side, they're coming off of a tough loss, and they need to avoid dropping below 500. But from the Chargers side, they need to get through this stretch of being so banged up and so injured without falling too far behind so that they can maintain their lead in their division. Now, we have gotten the injury reports on both sides now, and I don't think anyone is too surprised by this, but Jayden Daniels is going to play. I think this game's way too important for him not to, and I think that he is the only strength of their offense right now. That's not to say that their running back room is weak. I just mean that in terms of matchups, the Chargers really struggle against scrambling quarterbacks, and Jayden Daniels is the number one scrambler. He scrambles so much more than anyone else. The next person up is like 30% fewer than him, and I think that is a real weakness of the Chargers defense that they need to exploit. You know, I talked about they need to have Daiyan Henley as a quarterback spy. I have heard reports that Daiyan Henley kind of lost some weight from his flu situation, and he's like struggling to get back to form, which is why he looked a little bit weaker last week. Maybe that explains why they didn't have him as a spy against Jackson Dart. But no matter what, they need to have a plan for containing Jayden Daniels, even if it costs them a little bit downfield. Speaking of downfield, Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown are not playing on Sunday, and the reason that we're sure of that is because they didn't fly out to LA with the team. The Commanders have been in LA for a couple days now, and when you leave players behind, you have to rule them out. If they don't travel with the team, they cannot play. And I think this is a big deal because Deebo Samuel has also not been practicing. He didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday. We'll see if he practices today, but if he plays, he should have a pretty big role, not just in the offense, but also as a returner. He kind of quietly has been an excellent returner this year, and the Chargers have really struggled with their field position. I think something to keep an eye on for the Chargers defense is Zach Ertz has kind of been their go-to third down guy, and they need to be aware of that because, you know, when a bunch of players are down, quarterbacks tend to stick to the one that they are really comfortable with, and I think Zach Ertz can be that. Obviously Deebo Samuel's there and they're going to have options. I don't think this offense is going to come out looking completely stifled. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of you watched the Thursday night game, San Francisco beating the Rams. I mean, there isn't a more banged up team than San Francisco, and there aren't many teams better than the Rams. And so I hope you guys take inspiration from that because clearly a battered and bruised team can overcome some serious talent, you know, and obviously it took, you know, some coaching mistakes from Sean McVay. It took some penalties, but mistakes are going to happen, especially, you know, the Commanders and the Chargers. They're both going to be playing kind of desperately. A lot of people out of position. Both have some shuffling on the offensive line. Obviously the Chargers way worse, but this gives both teams a real opportunity to be the team that makes fewer mistakes. That's something that, like, coaches often say in sports is, you know, it's not the team who plays better, it's a team who makes fewer mistakes. So they're talking about the floor of your play rather than the ceiling. And I think they might have a point there. You have two great quarterbacks, two great head coaches. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think that the Commanders, if they want to win this game, they have to run the ball. I think that they really have to, and that starts with Jayden Daniels. Like I said in my last video, he needs to run for 50 plus yards. I also think running back Krosky Merritt, he has the highest yards per carry of all running backs. They are going to use him. I think, you know, with how the Chargers have played, how the Commanders have played, you don't associate these teams with the just run the ball, burn the clock kind of games, and obviously you associate Harbaugh with that, but in terms of what they've done this year, that hasn't been their approach. And so I think this game might surprise people that both teams just really want to run the ball. Because with an offensive line like the Chargers have right now, I don't want those guys dropping back and protecting Herbert. I just want them moving forward. And if this is the style of game, I think it's going to favor the Chargers because I think the Chargers have an edge at running back. Not to say that Krosky Merritt has been bad. I think he's been really good. I think they should be really happy with them. I just think Omarion Hampton is a first round pick for a reason. So I'm curious what they're going to have him do. It's supposedly Greg Roman's strength, right? The run game. And so hopefully he has some interesting things cooked up, and it's not just setting up the play action and setting up passing sets later in the game. You know, I'm really going to be looking at this opening script. Like what does Greg Roman actually have faith in right now? Because he had an interesting quote this week. You know, he was asked, like, you know, is Justin Herbert being hit too many times? And he's like, oh yeah, Justin Herbert's being hit too many times. And then answering another question, he was like, well, it's not just on the offensive line, it's also on Justin Herbert, and I'm really proud of how Bradley Bozeman is playing. And he's just kind of saying things that don't really line up, don't really make sense. And I, no doubt, Justin Herbert bears some responsibility for some of his sacks because quarterbacks can do something about it. But I mean, you're down to your third string tackles. You can't blame a quarterback for that. The Commanders are also going to have some questions on their offensive line. Sam Cosmi is out as well, their guard, and so they're going to have a little bit of shuffling too. Now, Joe Alt is not on IR as of the time of recording, and Jim Harbaugh is reluctant to confirm that it is a high ankle sprain. He just keeps saying, he's out with an ankle, working through an ankle, you know, and so that could mean a lot of things. Hopefully, it's not actually a high ankle sprain. That would be, you know, awesome if he could come back in 2 weeks and be healthy. But we'll see. You know, he's obviously not going to play in this game. I don't think we can expect him to play in the next game, but maybe the week after that, we'll see. I'm afraid of getting optimistic with this kind of thing because in the game, it looked rough. But apparently, Joe Alt tried to get back in the game. He was upset that, you know, trainers wouldn't let him. So, you know, maybe that's a good sign. But for now, we should assume he is out until we get more information. Roster moves that they have made in the meantime because of this. Foster Sarell has been elevated. They brought back Sam Mustipher. They signed Michael Dunn to the practice squad. There have been very mixed reviews from fans on these moves, and I understand that. We've seen Foster Sarell struggle. They're looking into moving Jamari Sawyer to left tackle because of how badly he played at guard. And that makes me a little nervous because, yeah, Austin Deculus didn't do great. He's obviously not super talented. He was their third string tackle, but at the same time, you know, I don't know that I want to see more Jamari Sawyer out there, period. So we'll see if that works out. You know, in theory, Jamari Sawyer has performed better at tackle than he has at guard, but I think that the Commanders have a real opportunity to take advantage of this weakness. As much as Harbaugh would probably love to just run the ball 50 times, I don't know that that's going to be possible. You know, Herbert's going to have to drop back a little bit, and the Commanders have to take advantage of it. For the Commanders to win this game, they absolutely have to get Herbert running because Herbert doesn't want to run. Herbert doesn't want to scramble. He'll do it, and he's really good at it, and Chargers fans like me are always wanting him to do it more, but he doesn't want to do it. And so if they can, you know, make him take a few hits early, you know, get him playing a little nervous, a little off his game, to me that's their best chance because they have the quarterback to score enough points. It's just a matter of can they put a lid on this defense, get after Herbert, and at least slow down Amarian Hampton once he gets going. For the Chargers, I think if the Chargers win, what that looks like is them getting an early lead and being able to run the ball, even if it costs them some first downs, just to like slow the game down, you know, win the time of possession game. And I think to overcome injuries, you kind of have to win the time of possession game. That's one of my takeaways from the 49ers game last night is I'm amazed that Matthew Stafford managed to put up almost 400 yards when he only had time of possession of like 20 minutes, you know, and the 49ers had it for about 40 minutes. Yeah, of course they were in that game to the end. You know what I mean? It's hard to defend these high-powered offenses, so what if you didn't have to do that for as much of the game, and then your defense was a little bit more rested than the other defense? I don't know. To me, that's kind of the profile of a Chargers win in this game. But what Chargers fans have been thinking about the most is Mekhi Becton, the right guard, playing? He was off concussion protocol. He was practicing, but he wasn't doing a full practice. I'm not entirely sure. But if he doesn't practice today, Friday, then he's not going to be allowed to play just because of how concussion protocol worked. And so we will know going into the game if we have him. And like I said, it's a huge gamble to move Austin Deculus out of left tackle and put Jamari Sawyer there. Besides the fact that then puts Foster Sarell at guard, and I mean, we've seen what happens there. It also, Austin Deculus was pretty good in the run game, and the run game is going to be what they depend on, at least in my opinion. And so they're risking that going away in favor of hopefully the pass rush is better, or pass protection, I should say. Yeah, so we'll see. Throughout the week, Dan Quinn was talking about how weak their pass rush was and how maybe it could be enforced by scheme, throwing in some stunts, some games, some reinforcements, whatever it takes to get at the quarterback. He said that they want to be taking shots at the quarterback, and he was very frustrated that they weren't. And so knowing that the Chargers did so badly against the Giants, who hardly ran any stunts or games, like they kind of just rushed for and occasionally, would do some sort of crossover, but most of the time they wouldn't. I don't blame him for going into this game kind of hungry for that. So that'll be interesting to see what they do. I think it's, ironic that the Chargers handled the Chiefs' defensive line so well, all the stunts and games and the complicated things that they run. And then the Giants, they just couldn't handle it. But that's kind of the Joe Alt difference, the Joe Alt difference and the Mekhi Becton difference, really. Omarion Hampton looks amazing. And as much as the Commanders, I think, are a really strong team, I think that the Chargers ultimately are going to win. We'll get into my score prediction in a minute. And I know that this kind of feels like a big advantage for the Chargers, right? There's no Terry McLaurin. There's no Noah Brown. That's two of their best receivers gone, potentially three, depending on the report. But to me, this is also the weakest the Chargers have been, and it's the weakest they're going to be all season. At no point in the season, unless, Herbert gets hurt, are they going to be a weaker team than when they are down three of their starting linemen. It's just not going to happen. And for a team that wants to run the ball and depends so much on their offensive line and has struggled so much to protect Herbert, yeah, I mean, that kind of favors the Commanders. And so that's why I think another sort of X factor could be the special teams unit on both sides. Both teams have punters who are kind of hit or miss. We saw J.K. Scott shank that punt in the fourth quarter when they needed a good punt last week. So I think he needs to have a better performance. And he often does. He often is able to get these really long, really great hang time punts. But then he goes and just shanks that one, or he punts one that's just really short, and you're like, yeah, the hang time's great, but if a fair catch gets you the equivalent of a good return, then what are we doing? So it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back from that. But it's also worth noting, Deebo Samuel, if he plays, he's a huge threat, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, but he could help the offense tremendously just in field position, and not to mention like the spark and the energy that it gives you, because when you are running the ball, controlling the clock, you really want to win the field position game. And I don't know if the Chargers win it. Darius Davis is out. He's been out, has some sort of knee problem, and we saw the Tarheeb Still thing. I don't want to see it again. That doesn't mean it can't work, but I'm looking at Keandre Lambert-Smith and I'm like, what is he here for if not this? Because as a receiver, he's not contributing there at all. When he gets on the field, he looks confused. And I'm confused because he looked so good in training camp, looked so good in preseason. But I don't know, is what it is. We'll see what they do. And it's not just Deebo Samuel, who's a really good returner. Luke McCaffrey, he's been really effective. I think he's one of those players where you look at this unit and you go, if they can't tackle, they're not going to get him because he is capable of running through tackles. So we'll see. I think whoever gets that advantage is likely to win. But my score prediction is still more contingent on one thing than anything else, and that is, does Mekhi Becton play? That's it. Does Mekhi Becton play? So, getting into the score prediction, if Mekhi Becton plays, my score prediction is that the Chargers will win 24-20. I think it's going to be a close one. I don't think it's going to be a super high-scoring game, even though you have two high-powered quarterbacks. I just think both teams are banged up. Both teams are going to want to run the ball. And, both teams have defenses who are looking to play a lot better than they did last week. That, to me, is a formula for, avoiding a game that goes into the 30-somethings. So, that being said, if Mekhi Becton doesn't play, I think the Commanders win 20-17. And that's a whole touchdown difference. Maybe that sounds a little insane. I just think when Mekhi Becton's there, the run game to the right side looks a lot better, and the pass protection from the right side is a lot more stable. And I think ultimately that's going to make a big difference. So we will see. Well, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Chargers Check-In, and I will see you all next week, hopefully to discuss a Chargers win.